Hey everybody, my name's Crystal, but I go by Cricket, and I would like to talk to you guys about the cricket towns of the United States. And what I mean by that is the small towns of less than 10,000 people that, make up the backbone of America, the people that are here, there, and everywhere for all of those of us that run the farms, that run the, fishing villages and stuff like that around the United States. And I'd like you guys to, take part of that and come with me on this journey. Now, I am disabled and I just left Omaha, Nebraska to come back to my small little cricket town in Mississippi. And it dawned on me when I was going to move that no one knew where I was from. Like, the town that I'm from, no one had heard of it before. No one knew what it was. And it made me think, there are so many towns around the United States that's the case. No one knows about it. No one knows where it is. No one knows what it is. And, knows what there is to do there, knows that there's rich culture that runs through the veins of the people that live in these cities and these towns. And I want you guys to know what they have to offer. So I'm going to start with my hometown because it's the one that I know the best. There are several others that I do know that I could easily write in this series. And I really want everyone to feel as though I'm talking to you when I'm doing this or when I'm making this story. So while I do it, I'm also going to kind of fix my hair and makeup because who has time during the day to do it other than when you're telling a good story? So with that being said, let's get started. So I'm a small town girl from a small coastal town in Mississippi known as Pass Christian. Not a lot of people know where it is or, who's from there, what it's like. It's South Mississippi. Wow, this crimper is something else, you guys. I really love it. I got it at Sally's a couple of years ago and I can't live without it. So I want to tell you why I love this town, why you should love it, why you should at least come visit it sometime, or, come see what coastal Mississippi has to offer. So, people don't know this place, and it's drowned out a lot by the larger cities like Biloxi, Mississippi, Mobile, Alabama, New Orleans, Louisiana. Those are the cities that people know about here. And while those are the places to be proud of as well, Pass Christian is really cool and it's really neat, and a lot of people don't know it. So what is it about this town that makes it an important place and an important piece in the grand scheme of the Gulf Coast and the coastline? Well, I'm going to tell you, there are a lot of reasons. And over the course of the video, I intend to break them down. So let's get started. Now, you can't go through and tell people about a town without telling you the history. So, Pass Christian, Mississippi is, and yes, it's spelled Christian, but it is pronounced Christian. That's right. We're really weird about our pronunciations down here in the coast. I live off of a main road that's called Mute. It's spelled M-E-A-U-T, but when it was originally listed on the road map, it was called Mayo because it's French Cajun. So we're in the land of Cuevases and Ladners and DeLilles and D'Ibervilles, and you've got all of these people and all of these names that are French in origin and Spanish in origin, and a lot of the infrastructure here is named after the colonists that came here from France and from Spain. Another aspect would be the Native Americans that came to live here, or well, were here first, if we're being honest. So there were three main tribes that settled here before the French came over and took over everything. Those were the Choctaw, which is one of the largest tribes in the southeastern district of, well, region of the country. And a lot of people know that name. You also have the Acolapisa. Acolapisa? It's an extinct culture, so we're not quite sure how to say it. They were a tribe that was of Muskegon descent, so they spoke Muskegon, and they ended up going extinct as a people during the Great Trail of Tears, as we all have been taught, but not the way that it should have been taught. So another would be the Biloxi tribe. They were Siouan, and that's what they spoke, Siouan language. And in Sioux, that word Biloxi means first people. So they were the first people in this region according to their culture. When you look at all of these tribes, you see that the Choctaw were, run off to Oklahoma and moved west. That's where you see a lot of reservations these days with the indigenous people from what would have been Mississippi and Louisiana at the time. The Biloxi people actually became extinct to some sort of extent when their tribe was merged into and combined with the Tupelo tribe, Tunica tribe. Why did I say Tupelo? Tupelo is another city in Mississippi, great one, we'll have to talk about it. Peace be to Elvis, because he's the most famous Tupelo born person that ever lived. So I think we'll have to talk about him at some point. So in the 1930s, the last of the Biloxi tribe disappeared and became part of the Tunica tribe. You can see this on the website for the Tunica Biloxi tribe. They became one. Instead of being two totally separate tribes, they combined in the 1930s. And that's according to their own website. So they should be the experts on that. Now, the old Biloxi area is what they called the area down here in Pass Christian. That is where let's start that over again. Originally discovered by French Canadian explorers, most notably Pierre Le Moyne d'Iberville. While expanding the French colony, the city of Pass Christian was actually found as a channel for catching oysters and oyster fishing, which is something that is still to this day something that is practiced. You'll see people during oyster season out there just having a heyday. It's one of the coolest things to watch happen on the coast. That and shrimp season. Shrimp season is my season. My sister and I both actually had friends that owned shrimp boats, and still their dads operate and run the shrimp boats now. So Pass Christian was known as, let's see how I say this. I don't want to mess it up. Passe aux Huitres. Oysters? Oysters. It's spelled Huitres, and it means the Pass of Oysters, or Oyster Pass. So the French culture that was brought into this area during the colonization of the Americas is still here. It's still seen. You see it everywhere. And French culture is such a huge part of living here in Pass Christian, because you have, everyone kind of embraces Cajun culture here, because we are New Orleans adjacent. Pass Christian is between New Orleans and Mobile, and it's 64.5 miles from center of Pass Christian to the center of New Orleans. So it's basically a suburb, if you ask the locals. We are in the middle of Houdat country. So we're all Saints fans. We're all here for, the Pelicans and everything that New Orleans has to offer except for the crime rate. So no offense, New Orleans, your crime rate is why people come here. Honestly, it really is. So the city of Pass Christian, or the town of Pass Christian, was chartered in 1848. That's about 13 years before the kickoff of the Civil War. And so there were a lot of things that happened during that time period here in Pass Christian that people don't know about. And there's still not a lot recorded, not a lot of history recorded as far as that goes. But according to the Hancock County Historical Society, which Pass Christian is mostly in Harrison County, but Hancock County is the next county over, and it hosts the cities of Bay St. Louis and Pearlington. Actually, I think Pearlington might be in Pearl River County, but Waveland is also in Hancock County, and the Kiln, where most notably Brett Favre, who I am definitely not a fan of because I know him as a human being. You should not like him. I'll just say that. He's from the Kiln, which is something else. That's Hancock County. So, due to all of that, they have a historical society that wrote a paper called The Battle of Pass Christian, which was a battle in the Civil War, and it was more of like a bar fight that broke out due to a murder because people were fleeing New Orleans during the Civil War. So it's a real weird and interesting situation not a lot of people are gonna know about, but it started over a 4-year-old girl who had been found on a boat that had sank. Her father and mother were killed when they were trying to flee New Orleans during a storm, and I can only assume, because it doesn't say anything about it, that this was either a tropical storm or a hurricane that happened during the Civil War, because ships just don't like sink in a storm if there's not a lot of like rain and water and wind. Wind is the wind. So there's a lot more to it, and I didn't want to go into too much detail about this because it happened, but there's not a lot of information on it. And at this time, it was more of all the people in this area in Pass Christian or Bay St. Louis or any of the local area, small towns, well, the entire Mississippi Gulf Coast was kind of hidden from everything. They weren't exactly joining the Confederate Army. They weren't joining the Union Army. The coast was very split on what side they wanted to take. And, honestly, I feel like that's where we're at right now in society as well. Some people don't want to take sides. People are dealing with a lot with our current economic situation, and were we to go to Civil War again here at current times, do you know what side you'd be on? And if you do, are you going to join that side's military, or are you going to be just a supporter? Because that's what these people were. They were just supporters, the ones that were involved in this battle. So it was just a very bizarre situation. It was people that didn't want to join the militaries for either the Confederacy or the Union, but were sympathizers that were taking kind of vigilante justice against those that they thought were involved, or they thought, hey, this is a Yankee, we're gonna kill him. And they did that kind of thing. So it's very interesting to see the history that's down here, because not a lot of people know that. But that is just a really bizarre thing about the Civil War that I found that had to do with my hometown. So, New Orleans is, like I said, 64.5 miles from where we are here in Pass Christian. And this little girl had floated on a piece of the ship to Pass Christian. So imagine what her time was like on that basically decimated hull of a ship by herself at 4 years old, floating from New Orleans 64 miles in the water. So then the members of the Union Army are the ones that found her, and they took her to an area called Ship Island. And Ship Island is just off the shoreline here. It's one of the barrier islands that protects our area from hurricanes and damage during hurricanes, which we will get into the hurricanes here in a little bit. But if it weren't for those barrier islands, none of this would exist. Literally none of it would exist. They help to keep the storm surges down and help to keep the people here safe. I have absolutely no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing with my hair right now. We're just crimping it. We'll see what happens once I get to playing with it. So we are 64.5 miles from New Orleans and 86 miles from Mobile, Alabama, which there's a rich history of Mardi Gras in Mobile, Alabama. Mobile is the first place where Mardi Gras was brought into the United States, even though most people associate New Orleans with Mardi Gras, because New Orleans took Mardi Gras and turned it into a huge party. And it's really cool to see the differences in a parade in Mobile and a parade in New Orleans, or a Mardi Gras ball in Mobile or New Orleans. And then to see them here in Pass Christian. So I intend on getting into that very soon, so that you can see, you know, what all's going on here that happens during Mardi Gras and stuff like that. So first I want to get into the hurricanes that devastated Pass Christian, Mississippi. So on August 17th of 1969, Hurricane Camille made landfall and decimated the city of Pass Christian. I remember a story about it that I heard where everyone in town went to the Episcopal church that was right next to the high school in Pass Christian, and they bedded down there for safety. Now, the problem with that was the church was at ground level, which is below sea level, which is where your storm surge is going to take out everything. A lot of people seek refuge in churches. They seek refuge in places very similar to churches and schools and stuff like that, but they did not seek refuge in the school. Well, after Camille was over, the only thing left standing was the school. The church and all of the people that had bedded down in the church for safekeeping were gone. And I remember how devastating that was for me to hear that, because I had grown up in the church, not this church, but a church. And I remember that being the first time that I'm like, if God exists, why would he kill his own people? Why would he do that? It just didn't make sense to me. And that was one of the first times I started to question my faith, was talking about this church and talking about Hurricane Camille. So with Hurricane Camille, one of the things that happens during a hurricane is something called a storm surge. So the storm surge is basically like an extreme tide. So we're gonna go through this one more time with my hair, because it's not as crimpy as I want it to be. Crimpy, is that a word? Okay, whatever. So the storm surge with Hurricane Camille was 24.6 feet high. So the storm surge is wind-driven water. So basically, the water from the ocean gets shoved inland at a shelf of 24.6 feet in this case. So basically, it is a 24.5 foot tall wall of water coming at all of your buildings, all of your people, and just wiping it out. I don't know if you've ever been hit by a wall of water, but it's not nice. It's not nice at all. I can't even imagine. 24.6 feet. Whew. The reason that the storm surge was so high was not only because of the water itself coming in for the tide, but because of the wind. Now, the wind in Hurricane Camille was 200 plus miles per hour. They couldn't accurately state exactly how much it was, but it was a Cat 5, which is the strongest level or category of hurricane that can hit. So think about that for a minute. Like, Hurricane Andrew that hit Florida was a Cat 5. It decimated Florida. And this hit a place in 1969 that didn't have the infrastructure that was needed to withstand a hurricane of that magnitude. That, at that point, was what we used to determine how bad a hurricane was. It was no Camille, people would say. Oh, that's nothing. Camille was a Cat 5. Camille did all this damage. I remember when I was a kid driving down the beach and you would see the SS Camille, which was a shrimp boat that had been picked up and left on the other side of the highway. And they turned it into a souvenir shop. And it was more of a, like, just a way to say, hey, this happened. We're going to commemorate it by using this old boat as a way for us to, you know, show that we survived this and that this could happen again. But people don't learn. So, onwards to the next one. So the second major hurricane that devastated past Christian, Mississippi, if you don't know, is this little storm known as Hurricane Katrina. Now, I wasn't living here at the time. I was living in Omaha, well, Bellevue, Nebraska, which is outside of Omaha, with my ex-husband, who was stationed in the Air Force there. And he and I were just kind of hanging out, watching the news, seeing what all was going on, waiting to hear an update. So the week leading up to it, I had talked to my mom every day, and I had asked her, you know, are you guys prepared? What if it turns your way? Are you guys going to do anything if it doesn't, or if it does? You know, at the point in time, the week leading up, they didn't think it was going to hit where it did. It was supposed to go way to the east, and the eye was supposed to go over possibly Pensacola, Florida. Well, that is not what happened. And so the eye actually crossed over New Orleans, Louisiana. And the thing about that is the devastation of the eye wall is pretty crazy. I mean, it's the strongest part of the hurricane. It's the most defined part of the hurricane. And I remember thinking, watching Katrina in the coast or in the Gulf when it was out there, I was like, oh, she is gorgeous. That is a beautiful storm. The eye wall was so well defined. Everything was so pretty. It was perfectly formed. This storm was like the coolest storm I had ever seen in my life. And I was just baffled by how pretty it was. I know it sounds crazy, something that can devastate like that can be considered beautiful, but it was. That storm was perfect. So the night before she made landfall, I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I think it's gonna turn. I think it's coming towards you. And she said, no, they're saying it's going to be fine. We're going to be fine. But I'm going to go stay at your grandparents this weekend just in case, or over the night, because, you know, they're elderly and they can't handle it. And if the hurricane does go in at Pensacola, it will go in and we'll get the shorter side of it. So with a hurricane, the northwest quadrant of the storm is where the most of the damage happens. It's where the strongest winds are. It's where the most tornadoes spin off. And a lot of people don't know this unless they live in a region like this where you get hurricanes. But the sustained winds, they cause a lot of damage. It's the tornadoes that spin off really fast that do a lot of damage. So there can be thousands of tornadoes that spin off during a hurricane. You just aren't outside to witness them if you're lucky. Again, if you see Jim Cantore coming, run. But I remember watching and I saw that Jim Cantore was in Gulfport, Mississippi at the VA home, and I said, oh no, no. That is not good. My mother called me the next morning and said the storm turned overnight and increased. And we're at your grandmother's, breaking into the house next door because it has a second floor and the water's already up to our chests. She said, I don't know what's going on with your dad. He's at the station and he just called me to tell me that they're going to climb on the roof because he just watched his patrol car float down the street. I was mortified. Mortified. Wouldn't you be? I was. So that was the last thing I heard from my family for about a week. And I'm sitting at work, watching the news, watching the TV, and all I see is devastation. Everything south of the tracks is gone. And my dad, I knew my dad was south of the tracks. My dad was at the police department south of the tracks. So my dad's gone. And that's all I knew. And then my phone rings while I'm at work, and I'm already in tears all day long because as far as I know, my entire family and everything that I've known, everybody that I've known my whole life is gone. That's what I think. That's what I know because that's what I'm watching on the news. Now, my phone rings and it's in a Mobile, Alabama number. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, this is going to be someone calling to tell me they found my family and my family's dead. And when I picked it up, it was my mom. And I squalled, you guys. Like I was a wreck. So my mom tells me, baby, everybody's okay, but I need you to do me a favor. And before I could even respond or before she could finish her sentence, I said, I don't care what it is. I got you. And she said, I need you to take your brothers. So her and my brothers and my grandma came up and temporarily moved in with me. Now, the day they got there, we unpacked what little bit of things that they did have, and we went straight to the Salvation Army and the Red Cross. Now, the Salvation Army hooked us up with beds for everybody and dressers for everybody. Now, the base housing moved us into a 4-bedroom house so that we could fit my brothers, and they would have a room where they could do their research and stuff for school and have a computer room. And we put my grandma in there temporarily while she was staying with us for a little while. And then the Red Cross gave us vouchers for my brothers to be able to get school supplies and clothes to wear to school and stuff like that, which they needed because they didn't have any of that stuff because it was all gone. And so every time I see a bell ringer at Christmas and I have change, it goes in there. It doesn't matter how broke I am. If I have change somewhere, it's going to go in that bell ringer's jar, because I know exactly what it's like to need their assistance and what it's like to have their assistance when you need it the most. So that being said, as soon as we got them settled into school, my mom and I went back down to the coast to sign paperwork for power of attorney and guardianship and all of the paperwork that was needed for us to get them base IDs and get them, you know, where I could take care of everything for them for school. And on the way down, I had never seen anything like it. I had never seen the devastation that was just widespread. There were trees down as far north as Memphis, in the median. You just saw all of this terrible devastation. There were houses as far north as Jackson, Mississippi, missing roofs. There were trees down in the median. There were trees down in the road in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and it was wild. But to come home to Pass Christian and see the houses of people that I knew my whole life in the street, from where the storm had literally picked up the whole house, turned it, and set it down in the middle of the street, and then picked up the Corvette from the neighbor's yard and put it in the window of the second floor of the same house. It was insane. I had never in my life experienced anything like it. And, you know, my mom, who, while she was a baby when Camille hit, she had been through several hurricanes, but she had never seen anything like it. And it was emotional for me because, first of all, I thought I had lost my whole family, and my ex-husband didn't give a snip. He didn't care at all. He sat there and just asked me why I was crying and said, get over it. But losing your hometown is not something that you get over, ever. Not something you ever get over. So we're sitting there and we've got the paperwork, we've got everything, we're working on it, you know, we're getting the boys settled in. And I realize everything's gone. If I were to come home, there's nothing to come home to. My dad, and part of the reason why I had to take over custody of my brothers was because my dad was working 18 to 24 hour shifts at the police department 7 days a week for 5 months. And, you know, my mom, she's a retired school teacher now. So my dad's a retired police officer now. But she was there trying to help rebuild the school that they had lost because somebody had to do it. Somebody had to be there for those students who didn't have family members that they could go with. You know, it's a lot to deal with. And people just didn't understand where I was living, what it was like, or what the devastation was like, or why I was so upset. Wouldn't you be upset? Just saying. Wouldn't you? So there was a lot going on there, and to this day I am extremely grateful that I was able to, you know, be there for my brothers when they needed me and be there for my parents to help when they needed me. And it's something that I take pride in when I can. It's not something you ever want to have to do, but when you do, you do. So enough about that. Let's talk about famous people that are from my hometown here in Pass Christian, Mississippi. A few of them you are likely to know. A few of them you may not know as well. But I think it's pretty cool that there are people that a lot of people would consider famous. Some people may not consider them famous. Some people may be like, yeah, you're calling that person famous. So what we have is, to start off, we've got Brian Austin. Not to be mistaken with Bryan Adams. Bryan Adams, you know, please forgive me. that was terrible. I am a decent singer from time to time, but right now I'm having a hard time seeing what I'm doing with my fizzy fuzzles here. He actually hit the Billboard Top 100 country charts in 1994 with a song called Radioactive. I'll admit that I had heard the song, but I had not heard of Brian Austin. He actually is Brian Austin Cuevas is his full name. Call back to earlier in the video when I was calling out last names from the area and actual township names in the area. Cuevas is one of them. So his hit Radioactive hit number 62 on the Billboard Top 100 in 1994. And I, again, had no idea he was a local boy born here in Pass Christian. So that's kind of cool. And I look forward to bumping into him on the street. You know, who knows? It could happen. So the next in line is Lawrence Goyette. So Lawrence was a civil rights advocate. He was also best friends with Muhammad Ali. Had no idea that Muhammad Ali's best friend was from Pass Christian, Mississippi. I think that's pretty freaking cool. So he was part of the freedom fighters in Mississippi back before moving on to another part of his life. That poor guy was abused and beaten multiple times just for having, you know, black skin. And a lot of it happened while he was serving time on Parchman Farm. Parchman Farm is a working prison farm in Mississippi, and it is still open to this day, and they still farm the lands in Mississippi on Parchman. So he passed away in 2012, but he is definitely one that's worth remembering. He only went to jail because he was a freedom fighter, which I think is just a part of American history that we should all be ashamed of. Shouldn't we? I mean, shouldn't we? The next person on our lovely little list is one that you're going to know if you know anything about jazz or music. Captain John Handy was born in Pass Christian, Mississippi in 1901. Wow. He went on to become extremely famous in the jazz scene in New Orleans. What are we doing here? This hair is wild. We'll figure out a way to pin it and make it look good. So a lot of people have heard the name, and if you haven't heard the name, then you're not a music buff. But he was very famous for his alto saxophone. Though he did start playing the clarinet in a jazz band in New Orleans before he went to the alto saxophone. But the clarinet's not what made him famous. So he went on to live until 1971, where he died in New York at the age of 70. And people mourned. He's one of the greatest jazz musicians in the history of music. And I am very proud to say that he is from Pass Christian, Mississippi, the same place I am. So moving on, we have Gene Lang. He is a former NFL football player. Very similar to other greats that grew up in the South, especially in Mississippi. You have so many that played football for our high schools, or played baseball for our high schools, or played any other kind of sport that are just amazing people. And Gene went on to play 7 years in the NFL. He played for the Denver Broncos and the Atlanta Falcons, which is much to the chagrin of many a Who Dat Nation fan here in South Mississippi. As you can imagine, I don't know, Would I do it? Would I go play for the Falcons? If the money's right, you better believe it. I'll do anything for the right amount of money. Maybe not anything. So we move on to the next person on our list, and she is a person after my own heart. So back when I was in high school, I ran track for Pass Christian track and field team, and this person, her name is Corey McGee. If I'm not mistaken, her dad was the basketball coach at Pass Christian when I was in high school, and she is a famous runner. She is on the list for the Olympics, for the upcoming Olympics. She made the Olympic trials. She was second in the Olympic trials in Eugene, Oregon last year. So we're going to see her on the USA team, and we're going to get to see one of the alumni from my alma mater and my track and field team make it to the Olympics, and I think that's pretty cool. So way to go, Corey. Shout out. And for those that don't know who she is a runner that runs professionally and is sponsored by New Balance. So that's pretty cool. I don't think it gets any more all-American than being sponsored by New Balance in the United States. So the next figure is going to be a comedian, and as someone who has done a little bit of stand-up comedy myself, I will say I think this person is top notch. I love her. Her name is Tig Notaro, and she was raised in Pass Christian, Mississippi until she was about 5. If you have never seen one of her videos where she tries to guess who the famous person is, you need to watch them. I will link one in the description box below. Watch her. She's hysterical. Next, we go on to the first African-American man to be admitted into the New Jersey Bar Association. Also born in Pass Christian, Oliver Rudolph. He is also only the second African American to serve on the New Jersey legislature, and he was the only African American to serve as a delegate for the New Jersey Constitutional Convention in 1947. So Oliver Randolph, round of applause for making history. I think that's fantastic. Another person that's a politician would be Larry Yarborough, and he has been in the House of Representatives of North Carolina since 2014 and is currently there, but he was born and raised in Pass Christian, Mississippi. Now the last person, but not least, that we're going to go over, that's a famous person from Pass Christian. I don't know if you watch Good Morning America, but if you do, then you know this woman. Her name is Robin Roberts. She is astounding and a beautiful human being, and I think that it is phenomenal that she is from my hometown. Now, if you have never seen her talk about Pass Christian and what it's like to live here and, you know, what all she did while she lived here, she used to drive the school bus so that the basketball team could go play other teams while she was still a student so that she could play basketball. And I think that's a leadership quality that everyone should have in their life, I'll be honest. So again, she's another round of applause for a local girl. But that about rounds out the famous people from Pass Christian. We'll go on to the next category, and I'll see you in a second. So I kind of finished my crown braid off of the camera. Crimped crown braid. Not what I was going for when I started, but here we are. So now I'm going to tease this bad boy to the heavens, because here in the South, the higher the hair, the closer to God. Either way, It's gonna be a lot of fun when I get done with it. Look at all this crimping. It's like the 80s threw up on my hair. I love it. All right, so on to the next spot. Now, what is there to do in a little town like Pass Christian? Thank you for asking. I would love to tell you. There are quite a few things, and a lot of them deal with water sports. Stand by. Let me get my makeup. So you may wonder what there is to do here in Pass Christian in Mississippi. So you may wonder what there is to do here. Well, there's things. There's things, I promise. You wouldn't know that if you were to ask my ex-husbands. Don't judge me. Yes, there's more than one ex-husband. Ooh, this is awful light. Sorry, you guys. I've been getting a lot of sun because I have been in Pass Christian, Mississippi on the beach, enjoying the sun. We're gonna have to fix this with a lot of bronzer. Just saying. My winter skin from Omaha is not used to this. Wow, this is a lot of foundation. What am I doing to myself? Anyway, so there's actually a lot to do. My ex-husbands would tell you there's nothing to do. There's nothing to do there. It's so boring. I promise you it's not boring. So, being a coastal town in the South, there's a lot of food options. There's a lot of, fishing, crabbing. We have blue crab, much like they do in Maryland and other parts of the country, that do have a lot of crab bakes, crawfish. There are so many really cool things to do here. And a lot of it does involve the water. A lot of it involves the casinos. My brother-in-law currently is a musician, and he plays at local bars a lot around here, and he's really good at, making everybody enjoy themselves while they're out drinking or eating or whatever it is that they're doing. This is really like, oh. So that's something that a lot of people don't think about when they think of South Mississippi or a beach town. Even though people such as Jimmy Buffett, who was born in Pascagoula, Mississippi, are from this area, and they are amazing. Jimmy Buffett, I don't know if you're a parrot head or not, but I do know at least one of my coworkers at my last job was a parrot head, and I know I am. So it was kind of fun to see someone not from this area enjoy the music of the people from our area. And I am making myself ghosty. Ghosty. I couldn't find my darker foundation, so we're just going with it. So there's a lot of tropical music, a lot of country music. There is karaoke every night of the week here. You're 45 minutes to an hour drive from New Orleans, so you can go over to New Orleans to hit up the French Quarter. You can go sit on the beach. You can go fishing. If you're not a fisherman and you don't like going fishing, don't think that this is not for you. We go out on the boat for the day. If you have wanted to live somewhere where the water is clear and you can see your feet when you get in the water, it's not far. It's a 15-minute boat ride out to the islands. And once you get out to the islands, then there's so much clear blue water. You can see the sharks when they come for you. You're not going to see gators at the islands. In the murky water, in the Sound, every now and then when the weather is extreme. It's been raining a lot. The salinity's down. Yeah, the alligators will get on the beach. It is what it is. We're like Florida, sort of, but classier. I don't know. That's up to your interpretation. Another thing that there is to do, again, the casinos. The casinos are always putting on concerts. There's the Cajun Crawfish Festival and stuff like that that goes on. But in Pass Christian itself, particularly, you have the Christmas in the Past, which is one of my favorite times a year because I love Christmas. My TikTok, I spent dedicated to just driving around the city of Omaha, showing people Christmas lights and dressed as Mrs. Claus. I used to be a professional Mrs. Claus with one of my friends. And it was really cool to kind of bring that in. So Christmas is one of my favorite. And Christmas in the Past is the first Friday of December. And it's basically the city of Pass Christian turns into a Hallmark movie. And the streets are lined with vendors and, hot chocolate vendors and people with like chocolate daiquiris. So, it's still coastal. It's still that Mississippi daiquiri flair, but they're like hot chocolate flavored daiquiris. So they're still frozen because it's still close to 80 degrees on the first week of December here sometimes. So you're still going to need to cool off. But that is an event that if you ever get a chance to go to it, it is like literally living in a Hallmark movie. Love it. Live it. Can't do without it. Sorry about that. I had to go get my powder and my highlighter because I forgot those. Another item on the list of things to do in Pass Christian would be Mardi Gras. So Mardi Gras is huge down here. And when people think of Mardi Gras, they think of New Orleans and they think of oh my gosh, the big parades that they have in New Orleans and the partying and the alcohol and the debauchery, because that is literally the culture of Mardi Gras. What you're doing with Mardi Gras is you are acting out all of your vices and getting them out of the way before you start Lent, which if you're Catholic, you know that is giving up all of your vices during the 40 days and 40 nights that Jesus was entombed before he rose from the dead. So it also coincides with Passover, so that, you guys have the desert scene with Moses where he is transporting his people across the desert. So they're also suffering for a little bit more than 40 days and 40 nights, but it also is a very similar time of the year. So with Mardi Gras, it starts with January 7th. That is King's Day every year. And then Mardi Gras season ends the Tuesday before Ash Wednesday. So it can go long, it can go short. It depends on what time Easter is. So you're 40 days and 40 nights before Easter. That 40-day period is when Mardi Gras ends. But Mardi Gras leads up to that 40 days and 40 nights. So, not Christmas in the Past. The Pass Parade is one of the biggest parades every year. And it is a parade where all of the floats from the Mississippi Gulf Coast area and all the floats from New Orleans and Mobile, which is where Mardi Gras started, call back to the beginning of the video, they come over from Mobile and New Orleans and enter this parade. So it is one of the longest parades. It starts at noon on the Sunday before on the Sunday before the Fat Tuesday, and so the Sunday before Ash Wednesday by default, and it goes from noon until sometimes 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The parade just goes. Now people will park overnight and they will get there super early to start setting up and drinking and making their, Jello shots and having a good time. So with that being said, that is one of the coolest events to come to on the coast. If you've never been to Mardi Gras, but you want to kind of keep your family friendly atmosphere, it's more family friendly than going to New Orleans and dealing with Mardi Gras over there. So with that being said, let's see. Ooh, yay. This looks terrible, you guys. I am not used to this. This is my first YouTube video with makeup and telling a story and hair, and it's coming to an epic fail so far, so yay. But there are other things throughout the year that are really awesome to go to. We have a seafood festival that's held at that park, the same park that they host the Christmas in the Pass tree lighting and all of the stuff that leads up to that. And it's War Memorial Park, and also not only does it have all of the stuff for those that died in Vietnam that were part of this community and those that died in other wars and conflicts, but it also has the memorial for Hurricanes Camille and Katrina. There was a Camille memoriam before Katrina, and Katrina washed it away. So when they rebuilt it, they added the names of the people that died in Katrina to that monument. And this park is where they have all kinds of events and festivals. There are seafood festivals, there's arts and crafts festivals, and pretty much, I don't think there is a single weekend during the summer that there isn't an arts festival or something along those lines that goes on. Now, that makes for a really cool atmosphere in your small town on the beach. But a lot of people don't understand, why do we have all of this? Why is everything a party? And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, you never know what next year is going to look like. We could have another hurricane come through and kill tens of thousands of people that live here, and tomorrow's not a given. And people here really embrace that if tomorrow never comes type of mentality. And stuff is just stuff. I know I have all of my stuff in the background, but this is a swath of things that I have accrued through the years that honestly, if it went tomorrow, okay, cool, I'll buy more stuff later. But that's a mentality that a lot of people have down here. It's just stuff. It's not worth losing your life over. It's not worth, trying to fight a hurricane for. And sorry, my face looks dirty. But no, it's an interesting type of environment down here. People are totally different than anywhere else in the world. They're more resilient, if you ask me, and I'm here for it. I love it. I live for it. It's home, of course, obviously, but for other people that come here, they fall in love with the area, unless they're like my ex-husbands, and then they don't love anything. So why would they fall in love with this area? They think it doesn't have anything to offer. But with the beaches and the venues, and we've got the Coast Coliseum down here. Every October there is a huge car festival. It's called Cruising the Coast, and it happens here every single October. It's the first week of October, and it brings thousands upon thousands of people to the Gulf Coast area. I remember when I was working for the Omaha Beef for a little while, there was a gentleman that owned a restaurant, and I was trying to get sponsorship for this team because we needed our players to be fed, and the owner happened to be the person that I had talked to at the beginning of my meal. I didn't know this, but I had walked up to him because I had seen his Cruising the Coast shirt, and we talked about, you know, how I'm from, you know, the South Mississippi area. I'm very familiar with it. That's where I grew up. And I said, I love that area. I love that place. The Cruising the Coast is one of my favorite events every year. And just sitting around talking about that one particular event ended up sealing the deal for my sponsorship. So that was kind of cool. It's something that if you're into cars, I highly recommend coming at least once to Cruising the Coast. There are sock hops, there are parades. Every city individually has its own events during the event, and every day is a different city is spotlighted. And I love the event so much, except for the traffic. As you can imagine, thousands of cars flooding your streets for one event it's a lot. It happens more than once a year. We have an event called Black Spring Break, they changed the name of it. It was Black Spring Break for probably 20 years, but now I think they're calling it Traditionally African American Colleges Spring Break, which is a mouthful, but that happens every year, and it brings a lot of people from out of state. It usually coincides with the kids' spring break and Easter breaks, and it's really fun. It's a very interesting event to watch. I avoid the beach at all costs while it's going on because the traffic is horrendous. But on top of all that, you have all these really cool things that happen. My mother and I are possibly going to be starting an elopement business. I have been a wedding minister for many years, and I think with me being disabled, it would be a chance for me to be able to still do something without killing myself trying to work. So that's something that's really cool. You see a lot of weddings on the beach. You see a lot of bonfires on the beach. It only takes $25 to get a permit to do a bonfire on the beach, and you don't have to have a permit to get married on the beach. So it's really cool to see all of these events that happen, that take place throughout the year, and on the beach and not on the beach. We don't have corn mazes and stuff like that here because we don't grow corn. And so that was something that I do miss from Omaha, and that I will miss this year, being my first Halloween away from Omaha in 5 years. But our pumpkin patches are mostly just pumpkins laid in a parking lot. You don't actually get to go and pick a pumpkin like you do in the Midwest, which was really cool if you ask me. But I do thoroughly enjoy living here, and I thoroughly enjoy the lifestyle that you're able to have in an area like this where everybody knows everybody. And you know, you go to an event like Christmas in the past and you see all of these people that you've known your whole life, but also people that you just meet, just coming together in the streets to enjoy a very cool holiday. And when you come for Christmas in the past, I always say stay for the boat parade. Stay for the boat parade. That is the best time, because all of the boats, they decorate, they put together quite a show with their boats, because they can, first off, but they have decorations and they have lights. And stand by, just one. Sorry about that, guys. I was having a hard time getting my lashes on. Still feeling weird about them, but it'll be all right. So there are so many things about Pass Christiana, Mississippi that there is to love. And I would love to share it with all of you great people. And oh no, now they're lopsided. Oh no. Anybody else ever have issues with putting eyelashes on? Oh, and I used Falscara, so they're gonna be on forever. It'll be all right. It'll be all right. We'll just have crooked, weird looking eyelashes. It'll be all right. No one's perfect. Anyway, so I hope that you guys have enjoyed this, and let me know what you think. I think that all of you would enjoy coming down and spending some time with us down here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And I think that, you know, we have a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun. And we enjoy our beaches, and we enjoy our sunsets and our sunrises over the coast and over the beach. And I really think that if you came here, you would also enjoy our little swath of heaven. Let me go finish off camera and I'll be right back. All right, guys. Well, these lashes are huge compared to what I'm used to. I haven't worn lashes this tall in a long time. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed getting to know my little slice of heaven here in South Mississippi. And I hope you like and subscribe. And I am very glad I was able to get this first video out of the way, because now I won't be so nervous. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.